Should you give up on home ownership? The relative cost of housing is skyrocketing. Wages are not keeping pace. And the supply of new housing isn't even close to meeting demand. So if you're a young adult, it's a fair question to ask, should you give up on home ownership? In today's video, I want to unpack this question honestly. Can you achieve home ownership on your own? Or is it smarter to stay a renter and redirect your money elsewhere? So let's be clear, buying a home is harder than ever. But giving up on it too soon comes with two big consequences. First, you risk becoming part of the grey tsunami. That's older people still renting and trying to live on the pension. I've spoken to women in their 60s and 70s trying to rent. They're not being picky, they just can't afford anything. It's heartbreaking. According to Anglicare, 0.1% of private rentals are affordable for a single person on the pension. This is a problem that is getting worse, not better. And although old age may feel like it's decades away for you, if you don't start taking action towards home ownership today, you risk trying to buy in the future when affordability is even worse. The second big issue is that renters rarely build as much wealth as homeowners. Many people rent with the best of intentions to use that extra money to build wealth, but the data shows it just doesn't happen. CoreLogic data showed that homeowners hold 4 to 20 times the net worth of renters on average. You can watch my deep dive on this in why renters struggle to build wealth here. Now, there are obviously many reasons to buy a property, but above all else, it is the ultimate insurance policy for protecting you later in life. If things don't go according to plan, you can still live a good life if you have a roof over your head. And if you haven't already, you should definitely check out my video on what I found after 50 hours of researching home ownership if you want the evidence. So should you give up? Absolutely no. Do not give up on home ownership. I understand it isn't easy. I understand conditions for young adults are worse than ever, but I have regularly supported people who understand why buying a home is a priority, regardless of income, whether or not they have financial hand up, and even if they're starting from zero. I've seen it firsthand. If home ownership becomes one of your top 3 financial priorities, it becomes achievable. And why? Because when you commit to the goal of owning your first property, you discover opportunities to move you forward that you haven't seen before. And I guarantee you that the financial discipline it takes to get there will transform every other part of your life. So if you're ready to start moving towards home ownership, here are some actions to take. First, manage expectations. Think of your first property as financial insurance, not a dream home. It's a financial safety net, a wealth building tool second. The goal is to get your foot into the door, not find perfection. So refine your expectations on location, size, features. Get brutally honest. Your first property is your base camp, not your summit. So start playing. I was working with a group of young adults who felt home ownership was out of reach. And I told them they needed to get comfortable with playing with real estate listing sites just to see what's out there. When it comes to what you might buy, focus first on what are the cheapest properties out there and then figure out the timeline it might take you to get a deposit for that. Doesn't matter whether it's a 1-bedroom apartment, a studio, townhouse, doesn't matter. If the market you currently live in is completely out of reach, perhaps you consider buying elsewhere. The thinking you want to cultivate is how can you buy a decent property in a reasonable time frame and get your foot in the door, remembering that the longer you postpone this, the word affordability will become. And even if you work out that it might take you 7 years to save the deposit for an entry-level apartment, so what? That's how long it took me. So set your course, then focus on small, steady steps. That's how deposits are built. Not through luck, but by momentum. Think about consistent efforts over big efforts. Next up, increase your borrowing power. We are limited to what we can buy based on what we can earn. So the less money you earn, the less you can borrow. It's easy to find online banking calculators that help you understand how much you can borrow. So play with them frequently, especially as interest rates bounce around, because that can make a big difference to how much lenders will give you. And then start to think outside the square. How could you make that number bigger? That might mean increasing your income or joining forces with someone. Co-buying with a friend or parent isn't just possible. It's often the only reason many people can get their foot in. One of my clients teamed up with her sister and it doubled their buying power. They couldn't afford anything alone, but together they secured a foothold that changed both their lives. Try plugging in some numbers into a borrowing calculator and you'll see how much capacity increases with that second income. Next, get on the runway before you have a deposit. So most people only start learning about real estate once they're ready to buy. So flip that, start now. Watch the market. Get an app that lets you build a property watch list. Go to open homes. Talk to agents. By the time you're ready to buy, you'll be 10 steps ahead. It's a personal hobby of mine to create watch lists for different suburbs. Not really because I necessarily want to buy there, but I just enjoy seeing what's happening. Sometimes I notice properties are sitting around for ages, while other times I see they get snapped up quickly. It's like taking the market pulse. Next, learn how to invest along the way. As you get familiar with the property market and create consistent savings habits towards your first deposit, that's your opportunity to learn about basic investing. You don't need to get fancy. Even understanding things like index funds or term deposits can help build your confidence. If your timeline is longer, your savings can quietly start working for you. The longer you think your timeline is to saving your deposit, the more time you have to put that money to work. If you think you can save your deposit in, say, 3 years or less, then perhaps letting it sit in the bank is more comforting for you. Finally, find a mentor who gets today's market. Having someone to support your journey can be the most comforting thing to get you through. Having said that, who you get advice from matters greatly. Are they level-headed, clear in the way they communicate? Do they have good experience? Do they make you feel good? So don't take advice from grumpy Uncle George who bought his house in 1973 for $18,000. When I started out, I listened to someone who hadn't bought a property until decades earlier, and it probably set me back a few years. Advice is only as good as its relevance. So look for someone who's buying or investing today, who understands the current challenges and how to navigate them. That could be a parent or a broker or someone you follow online. And if you're looking for someone to guide you through this process, stick around. My goal is to become your biggest champion. In summary, owning a home is still one of the most powerful ways to build stability, and the earlier you begin preparing, the more control you'll have over your future. Home ownership isn't impossible, but it's harder and it requires a new level of intention. If you understand the long-term consequences of not owning a property and you build the right plan, the goal is still within reach, not just for the lucky few, but for you as well.